If everyone please take their seats. Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, February the 21st, 2023. I hereby call the local government committee to order. Mr. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Representatives Alexander, Burkhart, Carr, Doggett, Hale, Helton Haynes, Holsclaw, Love, Martin, McKenzie, Miller, Moon, Raper, Reedy, Rudd, Shaw, Slater, Stevens, Thompson, Vice Chairman Wright, Chairman Crawford.
Present.
Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. At this time, Chair will take privilege. I'd like to introduce, we have several guests with us in the audience today, but for our emergency service people and firefighters, would you please stand up and let us recognize you guys? Thank you all. Thank you so much for being with us today. Do any of the members have a announcement or any personal orders? Representative Raper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to make one announcement or introduction, I guess. I'm from Cleveland, Tennessee, and we have some firefighters here. Number one, thank you to all the firefighters for being here. But I see Jeremiah Million and also several others from the Cleveland area. So if you would just mind standing up, and I want to recognize you and please, the Cleveland firefighters, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other personal orders or announcements? Seeing none, we have 13 bills on the agenda today, and I see I have members of leadership and some other chairmen that's with us today, so we will be going out of order to take a few of these. At this time, I'll recognize Representative Travis on House Bill 1216. Proper motion and second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. It is my honor today to be standing before you on the behalf of Speaker Sexton for one of his bill, House Bill 1216. And I'd like to thank him for giving me the good support that he brought with him today for this. We appreciate it. This legislation is brought to you on behalf of Tennesseans who are as a part of a non-governmental entity to collect payments of fees. In 2019, the General Assembly enacted Public Chapter 419. This law provides that whenever Hardeman County acquires property at a tax sale, any non-government entity holding a vested and duly recorded contractual right to the payment or fees or assessments secured by such property retains such rights. However, the non-governmental entity may only enforce such contractual rights against the county through the exercise of its lien rights through against the property. The law further provides that Hardeman County will be liable for the payment of such fees and assessments if the county makes actual use of the property purchased at the tax sale. And this will add Cumberland County to Public Chapter 419.
All right, members, you've heard the discussion from the sponsor on the bill. Is there any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, I detect that we're ready to vote. All those in favor of sending House Bill 1216 to calendar and rules, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Next on our agenda is House Bill 0130 by Speaker Johnson. Proper motion and second. Speaker Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 130 came to me from the Comptroller's office, and it deals with the Assessment Appeals Commission. The Assessment Appeals Commission was established over 40 years ago, and they took an active role in its operations. But unfortunately, today they are not meeting the needs. They're not taking an active role and not meeting the needs of assessors or our taxpayers. So, Mr. Chairman, what this bill does is it would would do away with the Assessment Appeals Commission.
You've heard the explanation from the sponsor. I have had requests for speakers on this, but I do not see them present at this time. So before we go out of session, if any of the members have questions for the sponsor, Representative Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the sponsor, who would replace the Board of Equalization?
Speaker
Uh,
Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right now, there's 3 levels. We'd have 2 administrative appeals, and you would have those appeals before you go to Chancery Court. So it would speed up the appeals process. The local assessor, and then administrative law judge, and then they would have a chance to go to Chancery Court if they desired.
Speaker, Mr. Shaw, you're,
Thank you. Just to follow
Follow
up
up.
on understanding, you're saying that the final decision would be the courts
Speaker Johnson.
If it,
if you didn't get the,
if it got that far.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Question has been called on the bill. It's non-debatable. We will go ahead and vote on House Bill 130. All those in favor of sending this bill on to Finance, Ways and Means Subcommittee, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to the Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee.
Next on our agenda is House Bill 976 by Representative Garrett. Got a proper motion and second. I do see that we have an amendment. Sponsor, can you please give us your drafting code?
Drafting code 4251, Mr.
That
Chairman.
is correct. Do I have a motion, proper motion and second on the amendment? You're recognized on your amendment, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The amendment's just a clarification on some consistency in the code, how we define some things. It doesn't make the bill, but it's probably better if we go ahead and put that amendment on it so we can discuss the bill as amended, if that's appropriate.
Without objection, we'll go ahead and vote on Amendment 4251. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The amendment is now on the bill. You're recognized, sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We carry lots of legislation down here, and we're proud of them all that we support, that we want to pass. But I have to say that today I'm more than honored than usual to carry this legislation today on behalf of all the firefighters that you are looking at, that are here in this room, and that all the firefighters that are at home in our districts that couldn't be here, that are working to save us, save people from disaster. And so now it is time that we, as legislatures, take care of those that take care of us. So what I would like to describe briefly what this legislation does, and I believe we have some folks that are here to testify, Mr. Chairman, so I can do that now, or we can have out of session, you can hear some testimony, or you can hear me talk a little bit, whatever, Mr. Chairman, the committee desires.
I want to do the will of the committee. I do know that we have some questions for the sponsor. Is it all right if we go out of session and hear from our speakers first? Without objections, we're out of session. We'll recognize our speakers today. When you come up, please have a seat there. Tell us your name and who you're with. The first I have on my list is David Edge with Franklin Firefighters Association. Mr. Edge, you're recognized.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is David Edge. I'm the president of the Franklin Firefighters Association and have been a firefighter with the City of Franklin Fire Department for the last 20 years. In Franklin, we are fortunate to have Mayor Ken Moore and Fire Chief Glenn Johnson, who understand the impact of repeated trauma exposures to firefighters. So I feel we don't have to go as far as some of my colleagues in other departments. This legislation will help ensure that no one in this room will have to rely on just good luck to have leadership that focuses on promoting healthier coping strategies and honest discussions about what the job can do to a person. This legislation helps to break the stigma and allows a firefighter to say, hey, I need some help getting my head right after what I was just exposed to. This legislation will tear down the negative stigma thinking that a statement like this was a sign of weakness. It will allow a change that when a firefighter does need help, that it will be a sign of professional self-awareness and be something that keeps firefighters healthier. I believe this bill will serve as an important symbol that will normalize open discussions and early interventions where men and women in the fire service feel supported. This bill will save lives. I thank you for your consideration and support.
Thank you. At this time, is there any questions for the speaker? Representative Raper, you're recognized.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. But before she speaks, I just want to recognize that this bill is called the Dustin Samples Act, and this is she's about to speak, but this is Dustin Samples' widow, and so I just wanted to make her welcome and let everybody know who she was. Actually, thank you.
Thank you, Representative. At this time, we will recognize Jennifer Samples with Bradley County constituent, and you have 3 minutes, ma'am. You're recognized.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Samples. I'm a police officer, a mother, and I am the widow of James Dustin Samples. This bill isn't just a namesake for my husband, but rather a testament to his legacy of helping others. Dustin would drop everything to be there for anyone in need, whether that was a call on duty at the fire station or a text from a brother in need. Dustin knew what it meant to be there for others because he knew what it felt like to feel alone. This bill summarizes what Dustin came to know. It is okay to not be okay, and you are not alone. We've got your back. This isn't just a suicide prevention bill. While I know this bill will save lives, it's also going to save careers, marriages, families, and relationships. You see, PTSD doesn't just affect the first responder. It affects the family, the whole department, and in turn, the whole community. I watched my husband struggle in secret and silence for years, scared to come forward and say anything due to shame and fear of appearing weak. When he was finally brave enough to come forward and say, I need help, we found relatable resources and references hard to get to, hard to find administrative support, and the financial burden was high. As much as he became a mental health advocate, he struggled to find what he himself needed. And this isn't just Dustin's story. There are firefighters across this state, dads, moms, sons, and brothers, who are struggling in silence right now too. My hopes in sharing my husband's story is that the heroes across this state can find support and know that they are not alone in this. This bill will save lives. And I sit here today so that no other family has to endure what my family has gone through. I sit here for these men and women behind me who have become my family. I sit here for the spouses of those who are struggling. And I sit here for a little girl at home who dreams of being a firefighter, just like her daddy. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Does any of the members have any questions for Mrs. Samples? Seeing none, we'll go to our next speaker. I hope I don't butcher this, but Matthew Tomic. And he's with the Tennessee Professional Firefighters Association. Please give us your name and who you're with for the record, and you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Matthew Tomac. I'm the president of the Tennessee Professional Firefighters Association. The Captain James Dustin Samples Act is our #1 priority simply because we can't wait anymore. The risk to our members is too great. We've got to drop all the ego and the pretenses and tell the honest truth that while firefighters are proud to run towards those terrible disasters and tragedies and wouldn't trade that service for the world, it's hard. It does hurt sometimes, and bad scenes do stay with you. You hear the word stigma a lot when talking about mental health awareness in a culture like the fire service. Interchangeable words would be shame, disgrace, honor, and humiliation. And it's the reason more firefighters don't seek care early when they need mental health support. A big part of that stigma is the process required to have PTSD covered as an occupational injury as the law stands now. We know that seeking mental health support early on can equip a person with effective coping skills and tools. The sooner you start, the more successful the treatment is likely to be. Your support of this legislation goes a long way in telling firefighters all across this state that it really is okay to not be okay. I do thank you for all that you do for Tennessee and ask for your consideration on this critical update to Tennessee law. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Homick, for your testimony. At this time, I will recognize Representative Miller for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's more of a comment than a question at this time, but I wanted to say to Mr. Tomac and to all the firefighters, thank you for what you do as a former firefighter, and I miss that as a retired firefighter today, but I miss the camaraderie and the friendship and the family of the firefighters. So thank you for what you do and what you continue to do, and encourage my colleagues to support this bill. Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Representative Alexander?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for your testimony, and thank you to all you gentlemen and ladies in the audience who put your lives at risk every day. And I'm always concerned why we worry that mental health is such a negative thing. If you fall out of a ladder or you jump off of a one-story building and you break your legs, you're going to go to the doctor, you're going to have surgery, you're going to end up in physical therapy. And we have to, in this state, remember that mental health is part of the whole body. It's part of all of us. And it's just as important as a broken bone or an organ that's sick. So thank you all for what you do. We fully support this bill. Thank you, John.
Chairman Holtzclaw?
Thank you, Chairman, and appreciate you bringing this bill. You got 65% co-sponsors on this bill already, which shows the enormous support that you all get. And I do have one question for you, Leader Garrison. Is that an official firefighting tie that you have on?
You're recognized. Yes. Out of order. Representative Burkhart, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too am a retired firefighter from Clarksville, and I do appreciate each one of your service, and I understand fully everything that each one of you go through, because there are days when you leave shift and it doesn't leave with you, and I understand it, I promise you, and I appreciate every one of you. Thank you.
All right, committee, is there anybody else that has any questions for our speakers? If not, I'm going to let them return back to their seats. Any questions? Seeing none, we're ready to go back into session. Thank you guys for your testimony today. We're back in session. We have the question has been called on the bill. It's non-debatable, so we will go ahead and vote on House Bill 976 as it's amended. All those in favor of moving the bill on, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Your bill goes on to Finance, Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Chairman Boyd, would you mind to approach the podium? I'm going to get you took care of, and then we'll get back on our regular agenda.
Okay, second.
I do have a proper motion in second. If the committee will indulge me just for a moment, let's allow our guests to please exit the room. Thank you guys so much for being with us today, and thank you for what you do. aware of the situation. We were sending that on to Finance, Ways and Means. It is not going to Finance, Ways and Means. It will be referred to GovOps. And without objection, we'll refer that to GovOps. Okay, we have a proper motion and second on House Bill 430 with Chairman Boyd. Chairman Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. House Bill 483, known as the Tennessee Freedom to Cook Act, would protect Tennesseans' right to choose what type of appliances they install in their home and what type of fuel they use to power their home, heat their home, cook with. And the language in the bill, I'll read it to you. It's pretty short. It says a political subdivision of the state shall not adopt a policy that prohibits or has the effect of prohibiting, based on the type of source of energy to be delivered or used by an individual customer, the connection or reconnection of a utility service or the sale or installation of appliance utilized for cooking, space heating, water heating, or any other end use. Mr. Chairman, I'll take any questions.
Okay, you want to be recognized? Okay, you've heard the explanation of the sponsor. Without objection, I have going to take Vice Chairman Wright for a personal order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't really mean to be out of order in the middle of a bill, but I am out of order. I would like to recognize the intern serving in the 19th District, also shared with, please stand up, also shared with the Lieutenant Governor, Laura Grace Jenkins, Jr. at the University of Tennessee. But more importantly, she is escorted by her father, Douglas T. Jenkins, Chancellor, Greene County, Hamlin, Hancock, Hawkins, elected in 2013, I think. Please give them a warm welcome. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman, you're out of order. Back on the bill, we have a proper motion and second. You've heard the explanation from the sponsor. Is there any questions from the committee? Question has been called on the bill. It's non-debatable. At this time, we'll go ahead. Let me make sure I get the right number. We are voting on House Bill 483. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to calendar and rules. Thank you for being with us, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman and committee.
Next on our agenda is House Bill 0434. Without objection, this will be rolled 1 week. Next on the agenda is House Bill 1533 by Chairman Todd. Without objection, it will be off notice. We will move on to item number 7, House Bill 0288 by Chairman Russell. Got a proper motion and second? That's all right. Take your time. No problem. Just take your time. Chairman Russell, you are recognized on House Bill 288.
Thank you, Chairman and committee. House Bill 288 increases the compensation for members of the Board of Directors of the Tellico Reservoir Development Agency to $300 per meeting and $225 per meeting of the committee board members. It increases the threshold at which sealed bids are required for purchases and contracts. This has come after like 40 years of the current bid process and the set price for the board members for per meeting. And this just brings it up to today's.
All right, you've heard the explanation from the sponsor. Any questions? Seeing none, I think we're ready to vote on House Bill 288. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to the Finance, Ways and Means Subcommittee, sir.
Thank you all.
Next on the agenda is House Bill 83. Without objection, it will be taken off notice. Item number 9, House Bill 754 by Representative Eldridge. We got a proper motion and second. We do have the resolutions of 2/3 majority from his local governing body. You're recognized on your bill, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This bill seeks to amend the private act. When it was set up, it capped the pay of the road commissioners at $200. The county commission was looking at compensation for both the planning and election commissions, and they did the road commission. They found out due to the private act, they could not. So this seeks to change that to where they can raise the compensation above $200. And it is subject to local approval.
You've heard the explanation from the sponsors. Are there any questions? Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, he answered one of my questions. It's local. But did your sheriff make you bring this legislation?
Representative Eldridge.
My sheriff hasn't said a word about this one. I'm sure he will about some others that's coming.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, I think we're ready to vote on House Bill 754. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Chairman and committee.
House Bill number 1537 by Fritz. Is he got a proper motion and second? Representative Fritz, you are recognized on your bill. Just for the record, I do have the 2/3 majority vote from his local body in my office if anyone would like to see that. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. House Bill 1537 is an act to change the Kingston City Charter. This private act changes the date that the city council must have its annual budget proposal submitted to city council. It's going to change that from a 90-day out to a 30-day out requirement. This will help the city of Kingston in three basic ways: flexibility, accuracy, and efficiency. Having to present a budget early, as is now required, and especially in these financially volatile times, makes some of the data more difficult to obtain. It does help us with the accuracy in the city of Kingston to be able to make sure that those numbers that are submitted to the city council are right the first time. And then efficiency, it prevents the resending or resubmittal of budgets at later times. I'll take any questions, Mr. Chairman and committee, that you have at this point.
You've heard the explanation from the sponsor. The chair will take privilege. One question, Representative Fritz, is this your first bill?
It's my first for this committee, Mr. Chairman. It's my first for this committee, but this is actually my third today.
Okay.
Fourth total.
We normally have a custom in full local government that freshmen bringing their first bill to this committee sing the General Assembly fight song. Can you go ahead and lead us in that?
Would you like me, Mr. Chairman, would you like me to sing version 1 or version 2 of that fight song?
Whatever you're comfortable in doing.
All right, I'll be happy to do that, Mr. Chairman.
You're out of order. Any questions? Representative, do you mind to withdraw that? I do have one question from Chairman Doggett. Chairman Doggett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the sponsor of this bill. I know this is your first bill before this robust committee. Is there any reason why you chose to make it your third bill of the day? Why didn't you roll those other bills and those other committees to next week so that you could present your first bill in a committee in this
Representative
committee?
Fritz, you're recognized.
I consider that a great lapse of judgment at this point in time. I should have came here first. But the only thing I could offer in regards to that is perhaps I get to spend more time with you all.
Any other questions? Representative Doggett, you're
Thank you,
recognized.
Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that answer. It's not as well. I make a motion, we roll this bill 2 spaces, please.
Without objection, we'll roll this bill 2 spaces.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is item 11, House Bill 405 by Representative Ritchie. Got a proper motion and second. I do see that we have a drafting code. Representative Ritchie, will you give us your drafting code, sir?
Drafting code 4163.
That is correct. Do I have a motion? Proper motion and second on the amendment. We do have some speakers on this particular bill. Do you want us to go ahead and does this amendment make the bill, do we need to go ahead and place that on there to be discussed?
Yes, Chair, we can go ahead and put
Okay,
that on there.
without objection, we'll go ahead and vote on Amendment 4163 going on the bill. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The amendment's now on the bill. Representative Ritchie, you're recognized as the amended bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. I bring today House Bill 405, which is party affiliation. Does not do anything to our general election process. All voters that are registered to vote are able to continually vote the same way that we have for decades and decades, all the way back to whenever we started this particular process. All this is doing is it addresses the primary voting timeframe. So all voters will be registered as either Republican, Democrat, or Independent as of December 31st of this year. Should this bill end up passing as of December 31st of this year, the voters' last primary that they voted in is how they will be registered to vote. So if they had voted most previously in a Republican primary, they'll be registered as a Republican. If they voted in a Democrat primary, they'll be registered as a Democrat voter. And if they've never voted in a primary, they'll be registered as an independent. These individuals have all year long to be able to change their party affiliation in the text of the legislation, going from Republican to Democrat, Democrat to Republican, Independent, and vice versa, any possible combination in there. The only caveat that is in the language is once we get within 30 days of an election window. So if it was August 3rd date, we go back 30 days from there, we're roughly July 5th. At that point, however, somebody is registered to vote is how they will continue throughout that primary process. So it's very simple. A lot of folks have referred to this as closing the primary. It's not closing or omitting anybody. One of the things that I've heard from folks is that this is going to end up disenfranchising the individuals that are independent voters. Well, right now we have unaffiliated voters in the state of Tennessee, and they can affiliate with either the Republican Party or the Democrat Party to be able to vote in the primaries, which is what the purpose of a primary election is for Republican voters to decide who's going to represent them in the general, and Democrat voters to be able to decide who's going to represent them in the general, and independent voters are our swing voters that then decide which party they like more of the particular candidate that is there, not the unintended consequences that we're receiving right now as the independent voter in the primary, alternating between Republican and Democrat, which with intent is a misdemeanor, as we all know, voting in an election that you don't affiliate with the party. So that is the description of the bill and what it does, Mr. Chair, and I stand by for any questions or after testimony.
You've heard the description of the bill as amended from the sponsor. We do have some speakers, and I know we do have some questions. Chairman Holtzclaw, do you want to wait till after the speakers or now? You're recognized.
I'll go ahead and ask it. Thank you, Chairman. My question is there any notification, like if you're identified as an independent to the individual?
Representative Ritchie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, so no notification. What will end up happening is the election commissions, as of December 31st, will end up registering the voters in their jurisdiction as either Republican, Democrat, or Independent. If somebody's registered as an independent, they haven't voted in a primary previously before but they're able to go online and change that on the election commission's website at any point, as long as it's not within the 30 days to an election.
Chairman Holtzclaw for a follow-up.
So is there any notification at all of this process?
Representative Ritchie.
Not at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Thompson, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, can I wait till after the
Yes,
speaker
sir, not a
speaks?
problem.
Thank you.
Chairman Rudd. All right. It seems like that everybody wants to hear from the speakers, so without objection, we'll go out of session. We have 3 speakers with us today. If y'all would like to make your way up to the table, I will recognize each one of you. Please give us your name and your affiliation, and you have 3 minutes. Our first speaker will be, he's a Maury County constituent, Bethany Torino. Is that correct? Yeah, make sure you got the little red light.
Okay,
You're recognized, ma'am.
thank you. Well, good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Bethany Torino, and it's an honor to be with all of you today. I live on 7 acres in Murray County with my husband and our blended family of 10 kids. Fortunately, the balance of power has shifted in our home, and most of them are out of the house. I have two of them with me today, two of my daughters who are still at home, Manhattan and Story. I brought them today with me because they're both planning to study law after high school, and one of them is even interested in constitutional law because of her love for the Federalist Papers. I want them to see their democracy at work, and I want them to see their mom stepping way outside of her comfort zone to speak up for something she thinks is vitally important to the health of this nation. Sitting here, I feel like I finally reached an actual person after being held hostage in one of those pre-recorded customer service voicemail loops for about 8 years. I finally feel I have someone on the line who can hear me and hopefully who can help. The truth is, I'm here today as a lifelong Republican who is now without a party. My party went too far and left me and my family abandoning explanations to some of life's most difficult questions like, is truth important? What about human dignity? And now, as a newly identified independent voter, I have to show my children by example it is of utmost importance who you choose to affiliate with, because being affiliated is lending your voice and your credibility to a certain group of people for a common cause. After speaking with the head of the Tennessee Republican Party last week, I was left with the impression that as an unaffiliated voter, I shouldn't expect to have the right to vote in the primaries for a party-sponsored candidate who I believe best represents me and my family, since I refuse to affiliate with one of the only two parties powerful enough to bring candidates forward in a successful way. Forcing affiliation is harmful and dangerous. It is the current political climate that you are putting someone into an impossible situation of having to align themselves with either Black lives or blue lives, or choosing between which is more important, life in the womb or life in the schoolyard. I'm here today for ask for the freedom to vote in the primaries as an unaffiliated so that I can vote with a clear conscience. I don't feel like this is asking a lot. I feel like this is asking for my dignity. Please be brave enough to allow me to vote in the primaries as an unaffiliated voter so I can show my children that we truly live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Torino, for your testimony. Does anyone have any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, thank you again for being with us today. At this time, I will recognize Shannon Rasmussen, and she's a Davidson County constituent. You're recognized, ma'am. You have
That's
3
correct.
minutes.
Thank you so much. My name is Shannon Rasmussen, and I'm here speaking as a constituent, but also as a veteran. I appeared before a House subcommittee last week to make the case that House Bill 405 would exclude veterans from voting in primary elections in a country that they fought to defend the government and the procedures of. I made the argument that Tennessee's government should not punish veterans for being politically neutral because, in fact, it's required of them during their time in service. And this bill, I believe, would punish veterans for being politically neutral and being political independents. In response to my testimony last week, we heard discussions about civic organizations and churches, states with military bases, and the difference between primary elections and general elections. Political parties are not the same as civic clubs. Supporters of this bill often point to the fact that the Civitan Club and the Rotary Club routinely exclude non-members from participating in their leadership decisions. And it's true. The difference is those leadership decisions within those civic organizations aren't being paid for and funded by taxpayer money. Political parties are operating like private clubs that can choose who to associate with while they use taxpayer money to fund these elections. Furthermore, unlike the political parties, the Rotary Club and the Civitan Club aren't working to ensure that we only have 2 clubs to choose from by excluding the Optimist Club and the American Legion from competing in the marketplace. Political parties are also not the same as churches. The Baptist Church can exclude the Lutheran Church from its activities because the two are private organizations. And the Baptist Church can make its own leadership decisions because the Baptist Church is paying for the search committee that will do the work. Rest assured that if the Baptist Church was requiring the Lutheran Church to pay for that search committee, the Lutheran Church would expect to have a voice at that table. Unlike church activities, primary elections are funded by all the taxpayers, regardless of their political leanings. Again, noteworthy that unlike political parties, the Baptists and the Lutherans are not seeking to limit us to only two denominations by working to exclude the Methodists and the Seventh-day Adventists from competing in the marketplace. The fact that other states have passed this kind of bill despite having military bases within their borders does not make this good legislation. It doesn't even prove that the bill had widespread support when it passed. It simply proves that the legislative body was able to move it through the process. Tennessee's legislative history is full of bills that became laws despite the will of the people. That's not always bad, but when it limits voter choices, it is. Those who point to the fact that independent voters should be content voting in general elections and should be willing to forego the primary elections are downplaying the power of a primary election. If you think a primary election doesn't matter, let me ask you this simple example. If nobody votes to send your college football team to the top 10, how likely are they to make it to the playoffs? The head of the Tennessee Republican Party called
Ms. Rasmussen, please wrap up.
Okay, will do. The head of the Tennessee Republican Party called this an issue of fairness, and I agree. This is unfair to veterans. It's unfair to taxpayers. And if this bill passes, most of those groups will still view this as unfair, and it's worth asking who the winners will be. I ask you to vote against this bill. Thank you.
Any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, we have one more on the list. Mr. Stephen Puckett from Sumner County. Mr. Puckett, please give us your name and who you're affiliated with, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Stephen Puckett, and I'm a citizen of Hendersonville, Tennessee. I'm here on my own behalf as a Democrat, and it's like as someone who has seen through the process as a party leader, the challenges, and listening to other counties about the both the issues on the other side with their factionalism, as well as the issues within our own party when we have malicious individuals trying to invade primaries. Now, I am in opposition to this legislation as it is written because it's actually going to be it's actually not going to achieve the objective that many of the factionalists who are pushing for this are going to want, and that is that they basically want to restrict it to only the pure bona fide members that faction agrees with. I've seen it in Sumner County where they, basically they try to throw half the party out when the factions change, which means that basically you're going to be back here after this debating about, legalizing bona fides and the rules, getting more and more into the party business instead of saying, you know what, if Memphis is having a problem or Davidson County is having a problem, Democratic Party's having a problem, and the Republican Party and say Murfreesboro is having a problem, then you know what? Let that local party address it by deciding to, instead of having an open primary, having a restricted primary and taking that risk of disenfranchising voters and saying, you know what? We're going to send a restricted list to the election commission and say, either only these people can vote or only these people can't because they have been proven to be malicious. That would be a better way to nip this in the bud, because if you go to party registration, I've got friends in other states that have party registration, and they're playing cat and mouse all the time, where someone gets thrown out of the party, next year they turn around, re-register with the party, and they have to get chased again and again and again. And you're going to be right back here having that same fight. The other thing is also something that's even more serious is that with party registration, where you're forcing everybody in the state to register, in order to vote, there's also safety and security issues and even RICO issues as bona fides can be used as intimidation, especially right now. I'm very concerned in Sumner County because we had county commissioners in a Republican meeting actually say that people were not going, that their members were not allowed to associate with Democrats. They weren't allowed to have them in their churches. They weren't allowed to have them in their civic clubs. Being able to weaponize that to attack individuals is extremely dangerous. You know, if you go and you vote in a primary, you at least have the benefit of the doubt of saying, I was after the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Before we go back in session, anybody have any question for the speakers? Seeing none, without objection, we're back in session. At this time, I will recognize Representative Thompson for his question to the sponsor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, I've heard these arguments for and against for years. Can you tell me what your motivation, why do we need this? The current system has been in place for a long time and seems to have worked fairly well and seems to be very popular with citizens of Tennessee.
Representative Ritchie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the logic rationale of bringing it in is it does not do anything to the candidate. So there's no bona fide situation that ends up coming into play or question. It's just having the voters register, and whatever the registered as, they end up going and voting. What ended up bringing this, I was born and raised down in Central Florida. And whenever I got registered down there, that's one of the 9 states that has a closed primary system very similar to this. When you go in, my neighbor that I love dearly that lives right across the street from me is a Democrat. We don't see eye to eye on any ideological value system, anything of that nature. But when he walks into the voting precinct, I don't think that it's right for this gentleman in a plus 24 district to have to tell that volunteer at that voting precinct, hey, I want to pull a Democrat ballot, or vice versa. If somebody else is coming in there, to be able to tell this volunteer what they're pulling. So that's one component, is for the voters that are going in there to feel comfortable to pull whatever ballot they want to pull, and they're able to change from Republican to Democrat however they want on the Election Commission's website. So it's very fluid. It's very easy for them to go on there. So that is the overall driving force or purpose for it, is to protect our voters. So they've got privacy in the ballot precincts when they're going in there to be able to vote, as well as when I was deployed, when I was active duty in the United States Navy, I was able to vote in a closed primary system, just like the state of Florida was at that point, and had no issues at all with being able to vote in a primary, like one of the witnesses had testified to, having issues for our active duty military or veterans. I didn't experience any of those issues at all while I was deployed. So it's more of just putting policies in place here in the state of Tennessee to shore up our primary elections so that we don't have any type of manipulation within that 30-day window of the election. During my campaign process in the primaries, there was a local organization or statewide organization that sent out multiple mailers saying that the GOP primary is open for all. And that right there is asking voters to commit a misdemeanor when they are knowingly a Democrat to come and vote in the GOP primary, which is not right. I wouldn't want Republicans voting in your primary in your district either.
Representative Thompson for a follow-up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're right now, you don't have to go through a process through the Election Commission, whether it be online or in person. Your choice is at the ballot. You go to your local precinct and you choose which primary you want to vote. It might be Republican today, it might be the Democratic the next election. And I just don't see any reason that we should take away the freedom of citizens of Tennessee to vote how they want to by going through a inconvenient process of doing this. So I will be voting no on this bill.
Chairman Rudd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Representative Ritchie, for bringing this. It's a very good bill, and it's needed. It's time. We've come close to doing this before. As Chairman Golden said last week in subcommittee, that we have had a lot of crossovers that are starting to affect local elections. While it's on a state law that you can't a Democrat can't vote in a Republican primary and a Republican can't vote in a Democrat primary and an independent can't vote neither if you can identify one. It's currently against state law, but it's rarely enforced, if ever, because it's very hard to prove. Because if I, as a Republican, voted in the Democrat primary, and then the DA would have to wait a year to see if I go back to the other party's primary to prove I broke the law. So it's very hard to enforce. And there was some misstatement said early. First of all, the elections, the state parties are not funded with any taxpayer dollars. We allow the primaries to use them to choose the nominee like we do our state committee people. But the parties have the legal authority to have state and regional conventions and caucuses to nominate all of us. They can bypass the primaries and not even go to the ballot box if they wanted to. So that is a convenience they've allowed there. But the Republican Party and the Democrat Party are two individual entities. They are private organizations. They're not government entities. And they have very different beliefs on most subjects. And I think it's a disservice to either party to allow a non-Republican or a non-Democrat to vote in their respective primaries, because you don't know what they truly believe, and the wrong person could get to be your nominee that doesn't reflect your party's beliefs. And right now, it mandates that all of us have to register as independents. And as a Republican, I would consider it an honor to register as a Republican, and I would assume most Democrats would too. And I'd like to have that privilege, and your bill does that. So I want to thank you for bringing it. And again, it's just upholding state law. That's, if we're going to respect the laws we pass, we need to uphold them. And this does that. Thank you.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I didn't hear a question in that last dialogue. So I'd kind of like to get your thoughts on that. From my going into my third year, and I heard it touted by pretty much everybody on both sides on the aisle, and I found it to be true. The last speaker said that Republicans and Democrats disagree on most subjects. Are you aware that roughly 80 to 85% of the votes are bipartisan in nature, with both sides agreeing on them?
Representative Ritchie.
Sure. I don't know. What's the exact question?
That most of the votes taken in the Tennessee General Assembly are agreed upon by both parties.
Okay, I will say it. Okay, I agree. I have not verified that statistic.
Okay.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You can, and you'll find that to be the case. So I guess the fact that we disagree on most subjects, I think, is not a true or fair statement. So your bill solely deals with primaries, correct?
Representative Ritchie.
Correct. My bill just deals with the registered voters party affiliation, which is how we end up going into a primary, because during a general election, we're voting for any party that is on the ballot.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you. And again, going back to the last speaker, he discussed how the taxpayers aren't paying for any of these aspects. They're trying to, I guess, refute what one of the speakers said. The primary vote is funded by taxpayers at the state, local level. Are you aware of that?
Representative Ritchie.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the second, just patently false statement. So my
Representative McKenzie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My last question to you is, as you talk about the independent voters having a say when it comes down to the general election, could you give me any kind of, this is your bill, I'm sure you've done a great deal of research on it, and I appreciate all the work that you've done. Can you give me an idea of how many, or the last time, or what percentage of independents have won a race at the state level?
Representative Ritchie.
I don't follow the independent races as being a Republican and running on that party. I typically end up following that.
Representative McKenzie, for your final question.
Thank you. That answer would be 0. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chairman Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. I am curious to know if you want to go back and you want to change how you are considered. You know, like if you want to change it, you said 30 days before, prior to the primary. You can go back and forth and change whether or not you're a Republican, depending on who you want to vote for.
Representative Ritchie.
So inside of the party affiliation on the state website, somebody could end up switching over whatever party affiliation. If somebody down the road says, like one of the previous witnesses said, that the Republican Party had left her, now she identifies that as an independent, she would be able to go on there and change from a Republican to an independent on the state's website on her voter registration card.
Chairman Alexander.
Thank you, Chairman. If that is the case, so then could she go back, if she decided to be a Republican again, could she go back and change it again? And how many times are you allowed to change?
Representative Ritchie.
They can go on there and change. There's no specific parameter or limit on how many times somebody can end up changing, as long as it's not within inside of that 30 days. And the 30 days comes into play because that's the registration date filing for voters. So nobody can end up voting on a particular election if they did not register to vote prior to 30 days before then. So that's why that 30-day window is placed on there.
Okay.
Chairman Alexander.
So let's just go back to your comment about your neighbor. You were saying that your good friend and neighbor across the street's a Democrat, you're a Republican. Let's just say you are a registered Republican and you decided you wanted to vote for your neighbor because he's running for something and you wanted to vote for him. So you have to go in and change that you're not a Republican anymore and put down that you're going to be a Democrat so that you can vote for him.
Representative Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. So
In the primary, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so in order for somebody to vote in a particular primary, they would have to be affiliated with that particular party. So if somebody is registered as a Republican and they wanted to vote Democrat, they would have to change, or if they're a Democrat, they would have to change.
Chairman Rudd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel I must address something since one of my Democrat colleagues called me a liar in this committee a few minutes ago. I did not say, I said that the parties were not funded with taxpayer dollars. I didn't say elections. As far as the partisan elections, the parties have their elections when we're already having elections, so it doesn't cost any additional there. But I said the parties were not funded by taxpayer dollars. I didn't say the elections. And also, as far as the 80%, most of the bills that we have are not partisan in nature. They're cleanup bills, they're spending bills, or allocation bills, or honoraries, or state highways, state bridges, honoring the police and fire departments and funding firemen and other things like that are not partisan. The truly 10 to 20% of the bills that are partisan, we rarely agree on any of those. And that's what I was talking about. Thank you.
I will take this opportunity just to remind the committee that I will not allow running debate. So if you've got a question, address it to the sponsor or myself, and vice versa. Is there any more questions? Representative Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, it's more of a statement than a question. As the three speakers were speaking, Mr. Chairman, I noticed one Republican, one Democrat, and then one independent. And as I look at those empty chairs right now, this bill basically is saying Democrats, you can stay there, Republicans, you can stay there, but we're going to remove the independents. This country is great. This state is great. And you know why? Because of the independence. The independence of people, American citizens, having that right of choice. And what we're doing with this bill, I'm telling you, you're taking that independence away. And it's wrong. It's wrong. And it's not, that would be illegal. If anything is going to be illegal, that would be illegal. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for the sponsor? The question has been called on the bill. That's non-debatable. We will go ahead and vote on House Bill 405 as it was amended. All those in favor of House Bill 405 say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No. Noes have it. Your bill fails. Sorry, Representative Ritchie. Next on our list is Item 12, House Bill 0636 by Representative Barrett. Got a proper motion? Do I have a second? Second. Representative Barrett, you're recognized on your bill, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that motion and second. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 636 addresses an issue with the current law, which has the filing deadlines for both independent candidates and party affiliated candidates seeking to run in a primary. That deadline is on the same date. The primaries after that date then have the ability to challenge through their vetting process the candidates that are running in their primary. If a party removes one of those candidates from their primary ballot, the effect is to remove that candidate completely from the ballot. So this bill, instead of a party saying you cannot run at all, this bill would simply allow the parties to say you cannot run in our primary. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on House Bill 0636. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. At this time, we'll call our good friend Representative Fritz back up to the podium. This is item number 10 on our agenda. It's House Bill 1537. We do have a proper motion and second on the bill. You're recognized, Representative Fritz, on your bill. Question's been called on the bill. That's non-debatable. All those in favor of House Bill 1537, moving on to calendar rules, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Your bill moves on to calendar rules, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for being patient. Okay. Where are we at? 13. Okay, we're on agenda item 13, House Bill 0176 by Representative Carr. Without objection, this will be taken off notice. Before closing today, I will ask all the members if you have any announcements you would like to make or personal orders. Seeing none, I hope everybody has a good week. We have several people here on the Hill. I think there's 4 different days on the Hill going on today. So if you see those people out there, thank them. And we will meet next Tuesday, same back station, same back channel. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Wright, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's fish fry.
Fish fry tonight. Our firemen have their normal fish fry, and that will be at the Metropolitan Auditorium. So if you'd like to go down there, it's awful good eating. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. We are adjourned.